Hello there and welcome to another video. Today we're getting a bit political, but we're only getting political in an observational way, not in a partisan way. We're talking about how the woke left actually became capitalism's best ally or best friend. So this is basically about the fact that back in the day, the progressive left used to be more focused on economical inequality. The progressive left used to be against globalization, was extremely critical of the banks after they messed up the whole economy in 2008. And the enemy was clearly the 1%. The enemy was wealth inequality and especially corporate power. There was a big movement called Occupy Wall Street. When I was really young, like in 2011 or 10 or something like that, there was Occupy Wall Street. But then there was kind of a shift on the progressive side of politics. Instead of concerning themselves so much with wealth inequality, a lot of it started to be more about identity issues. Things like race, gender, language, representation of minorities and things like that. Which are of course also important issues, but it was just an interesting shift from going from one thing to now a completely different one. This also doesn't mean that everyone stopped caring about economical inequality. And it also doesn't mean that even before people didn't care about identity issues. This is just a very broad generalization. I'm not being very specific right now. But at the same time, I think protesting and showing outrage started to become more and more of a lifestyle. Just as the issues were identity issues, being upset and protesting things also became part of people's identities. I think some activism became a little bit performative, to be honest. A lot of hashtags, a lot of protests and boycotts. And I think for some people, it was also a nice way to have some personal expression, which doesn't take away from the validity of any arguments that are made. Just because you're upset about something and you're using this as a personal expression doesn't mean that it's less valid or that it's less true what you're upset about. But I do think it became, as well as the issue was identity, it also became an identity in itself. There are obviously a lot of very important social issues. All issues are not just economical ones. I was just surprised at the big shift that kind of happened among the progressive left. The battleground kind of changed completely. The target went from billionaires to these cultural battles. Traditionally, I think it was very easy to distinguish right and left because of the economical issues. But in the cultural battles, it became more complicated, the whole situation. What I think also happened is that the left, this is what I'm getting to when it comes to how the left actually became an ally of capitalism. The left during this time, or the progressive movement, did not notice that the ultra-rich or the 1% were not really challenged at all by these social fights. In fact, I would argue that the 1% and the ultra-wealthy actually got to participate in them. The same people that normally would have been their enemies and that would have tried to occupy Wall Street were now too busy fighting for other social issues in which companies and billionaires could participate as if they were one of them. Corporations could easily post a rainbow during Pride Month. A company that is doing like deforestation in the Amazon and poisoning rivers or whatever can host DEI workshops. Some companies, while behind the scenes, they're like buying up all the water supply and they're consolidating power. They're having this outward image of being progressive. Because social campaigns don't necessarily have to do about money. They have to do about representation. And I think secretly, without actually anyone saying it out loud, capitalism secretly loves identity politics. It's because social issues can actually become like these endless symbolic battles. And they are a very useful distraction from the economic ones. So while people are fighting over language and representation, the profits of companies and the profits of shareholders is not really threatened at all. In fact, they can even monetize it. The brands, they can market themselves as progressives, while at the same time exploiting cheap labor overseas, which is, super cool if you're trying to be progressive. Basically, everything that you can market is good for capitalism. And if you can market a progressive image, that's the best, because you get to seem like you're very moral as well. And at the same time, I think some corporations and some billionaires were also very genuine when they cared about these social issues. Just because you have a ridiculous net worth doesn't mean that you don't get to feel good about yourself for supporting social change. And I also don't think this is actually a criticism of capitalism either. Capitalism is extremely adaptive. That's why it's been able to generate such amazing things for us. I think capitalism has the unique trait of really getting the most potential out of people and out of everyone, basically, if the motivation is money. And with this, it can unlock a ridiculous amount of potential and also achieve great things, medicines and all these kinds of things. But for the same reason that it's so adaptive in all these other areas, it's also extremely adaptive in the kind of political area as well. In some instances, I also think that the woke left became a tool for billionaires. Because how can you accuse a billionaire of being oppressive when they are funding scholarships for underrepresented groups and minorities and all these things? So I think it became a shield against criticism, while behind the curtain the economical powers are being consolidated among very few people. And something that I think is a little bit interesting as well is before the focus was on the CEOs, what they were doing and the amount of money that they were making. And the focus changed to who gets to become a CEO. People were more outraged by the fact that the CEO is a man than the fact that the CEO is making 300 times what their workers are making. And it's not like every man gets to be a CEO either. Almost no one is a CEO. And so thinking that a female CEO is somehow a crazy win, I think is a little bit backwards, because just because someone is a female CEO doesn't mean that the CEO is busting unions, doesn't mean that the CEO isn't poisoning rivers or doing anything like that. I feel like the focus was a little bit misplaced. I think it's more important to focus on the CEOs than actually focusing who gets to be a CEO. Yeah, and for the well, I think now in general this is changing a bit. More people are caring about economical inequality, but I think most of this boils down to the classical strategy of dividing and distracting. Energy that once united people against something very simple, something very easily measured, which is economical inequality. This energy is now was then divided among like 2,000 social issues. And these endless culture wars become a very profitable distraction in and of itself for media companies and all of these companies that are some of the largest companies that exist. They're extremely profitable for media and for politics as well, while at the same time they are distracting. So I think even though billionaires don't want to say it, I think the woke kind of progressive movement of identity politics was an amazing tool for them. It distracted the people that normally would be fighting against the economical inequality and kept them busy with endless social issues that you can just keep dividing up into smaller and smaller categories, making it an endless symbolic battle. The fact that you could market this extremely easily, just companies posting on their Twitter pages some progressive things, distracting from what they're actually doing behind the scenes. And what I enjoy the most, and what I think is extremely funny, if it wouldn't be so sad at the same time, is when t-shirts are being sold that are like anti-capitalist or anti-this or anti-that, and they're being sold for like a 200% profit margin, while they're being produced by cheap labor in Bangladesh or India or something like that. Like imagine criticizing capitalism and selling a t-shirt for with a 200% profit margin that is made with exploited labor. Like the irony is just like too good. So that's pretty funny, I thought. And I think observing this doesn't necessarily mean that you're anti-progressive or anti-this or that. I just thought it was interesting to kind of think about how power adapts and how intuitively you might think that the progressive movement or the woke left was the enemy of the ultra wealthy. Or when you think about it very carefully, there are a lot of ways that it could be used for the benefit of these companies and these corporations. Because power tends to adapt, and people in power are generally not that stupid. So you need to give them some credit. They think of some brilliant stuff, and I think in the end, the woke left was an ally of capitalism as well. That's about it. That's all I wanted to talk about. A little bit more of a dangerous subject, without getting political or too political. But that's about all. I hope you have a great day, and maybe I'll see you next time. Bye bye.